This is Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related, and today I'm here to discuss and give you my honest opinion and thoughts on Stadia's newest exclusive title, Crayta. From what I can tell, it seems like this is very much so a love it or hate it game, and the community seems pretty divided on their opinion of it. Truth be told, I can't say I'm too surprised about this either. I think some people really set up their expectations a little too high for the launch of this game. As for my own thoughts on it, I'm kinda stuck between it being good and bad. I don't think it's necessarily one or the other, and I think it's way too early to judge. This really isn't your typical video game, and it shouldn't be treated as such. This is gonna be an evolving platform of its own. And I'll go into that later in this video, but I want to make it clear that this game will be evolving over time, and what you're experiencing right now at launch will be completely different a year down the road. Even right now, just 4 days after the release, we're starting to see some of those creative aspects truly shine. A perfect example of this is a recent level that was posted that's a 2D platformer. It completely changes the camera perspective and allows for a very different style of game. And sure, this is a rough example. The level design is basic, the controls feel floaty, and I wouldn't say it's worth jumping into Crayta to play immediately. But this is the very start. This is 4 days in. People are still getting used to what they can make here. The fact that people are already making an experience that just wasn't there on launch is pretty amazing and astounding. Much like other games in its category, it's gonna take quite some time before we start to see what this is fully capable of. But till that happens, we're probably gonna keep seeing a few deathmatch arenas and races because they'll be built off the templates included. And if you're not a fan of those experiences, I would just suggest you come back to Crayta 2 weeks from now or even a month later and see where it's at. By then, there should be a few examples of what's possible with the creation tools included. But now let's move away from the potential the game actually has to discussing the gameplay itself, and there are a few issues that do need to be addressed here. And the elephant I need to address in the room is the controls and animation. Right now, a lot of it feels really stiff and it just gives off the impression of being early access. What also isn't helping here is the fact that the art style is so reminiscent of Fortnite. And if you're wondering why that becomes a problem, well, it's because the first point of comparison people will have for it is that title, and most people know what Fortnite plays or looks like. And right now, Crayta is nowhere near that level of smoothness. The way that characters run, jump, crouch, it all just feels very robotic in comparison. And when it comes to the shooting mechanics, it just feels extremely basic. By no means am I trying to say that these things are beyond repair or that it's so bad it's unserviceable. That's not true. But I do think it's one of the biggest reasons as to why people have a negative outlook on the game. It just doesn't reach that level of polish that they're probably going to compare it to. The sad truth is that it's not even a very fair comparison to make, considering the games aren't even in the same genre and the development team size behind each game are worlds apart. And yet, despite all this, I couldn't help but find myself playing Crayta more than any other Stadia game that's launched on the platform as of recent. I genuinely did enjoy my time playing some of the experiences they made for launch. Some that come to mind are Crayta Sprint League and Super Doomwall. Both of those I enjoyed a ton, but there's one that really stood out to me. And I'm talking about Tumbleweed Ridge. This plays much more like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, and while there are other players in the same area as you, it's much more of a single player experience. This game actually gives you your own inventory, farm you can grow crops on, and a house you can furnish with items. Not only that, but once you get enough money for a pickaxe, you can actually go into the mines and it'll load a completely different level where you can mine for minerals to sell for profit. What really stood out to me most about this experience though is the fact that the game actually saves everything you do. Whether or not you load into a separate instance of the game, all your crops are there, your house is furnished just the way you left it, and your inventory remains the same. The fact that people can make an RPG-like experience that saves your progress no matter what instance of the game you join is pretty mind-blowing stuff. And I'd be lying to you if I told you I didn't log into Crayta every day to harvest and place more crops down. Now sadly, when it comes to Tumbleweed Ridge, you don't really have all that much to buy or do after you got a good amount of money. But what really matters here is the proof of concept and the fact that it's possible. If somebody were to build upon this idea and implement some sort of way to fish, it would mean a lot for the replayability. And the fact that you can load into a different level that gives you a completely different environment really leaves up a lot to the imagination. Off the top of my head, make a separate store that sells weapons, let you load into a different environment that lets you fight monsters, make a crafting table to combine items. The way that the game allows you to load into a separate level to actually change the environment really makes the possibilities grow even further. And when you start combining ideas that people have made separately, for example, let's talk about that 2D platformer from earlier, well, that's how ideas like Terraria are born. I genuinely can't wait to see what people come up with in the future. And I say people because myself, I'm not much of a creator, but I do enjoy playing these games, and Crayta did bring a memory of my childhood back. Growing up, I played a ton of Warcraft 3. But I didn't play it for the typical RTS games, I strictly played it for the custom games. It's what introduced me to game types like tower defense and created separate genres like MOBAs. When you give people the correct tools in their hands and they go crazy with it, that's when the best creations will get made. And the way Crayta can just load into a new instance so seamlessly without having you worry about how much hard drive space it'll take up, it just feels like this could be the next evolution of that. But in my opinion, before it gets there are a ton of things standing in its way that it needs to address. The first thing that needs to change in my mind is the Stadia exclusivity, and please hear me out. While I'm all for Google Stadia having its own exclusive games, this is one example where it's actively hurting the game itself. What it's doing right now is blocking itself from creators who want to use the platform to make their own game. And you may notice I keep talking about Crayta like a platform because that's kind of what it is. Ultimately, it's a place to create games and share them with others so they can enjoy them too. And what's happening here is that a platform is being locked behind another platform, and that just doesn't seem like a good idea. While you could argue that making it exclusive would mean people have to try Stadia out by force, I think it would actually be better if people realized Stadia would be the best place to play this type of game on their own. Anything that'll allow more people to access the creation tools is only gonna expand its lifespan. And on that topic, if this were to come to PC, it needs to be free to play. I do know that the Stadia version currently has a price point, and I think that has more to do with the fact that Google has yet to figure out a way to handle free-to-play games. But that's a whole other topic. Either way, this isn't just about accessibility, it's gonna be the fact that you're going to need to compete with competitors. And it just so happens that the competition on PC is already free to play. And I'm not just talking about Roblox, because the other competition on the market is called Core. Not only does it look a lot like Crayta, but it already has a ton of people creating for it. And that can be a bit worrisome, because based on the wording that the Crayta developers have stated about this game being exclusive to Stadia, it does sound like it will be coming to PC eventually. But if that takes too long to happen, then it's gonna be really hard to get any sort of foothold on the market if Core turns out to be a success. Crayta needs to be the platform for creating games within a game. To do that, it needs to be free to play, and it needs to be on as many platforms as possible. The other addition I think that needs to get added is allowing creators to sell things in their games. This was a key part to making Roblox the success it was, and I think it's essential when trying to entice creators to spend time making games within your platform. And something tells me that the Crayta team is fully aware of these three things that need to happen. The game itself is already structured somewhat free to play with its in-store marketplace and its own in-game currency. The way they tiptoe around Stadia exclusivity as a title makes it sound like it's not gonna be a permanent exclusive. Then there's the fact that the creation tools transfer so easily over to PC. I think this was all taken into account when making the game, and I really do wish them the best of luck. I've tried out Core, and if I had to choose between the two, I actually do prefer Crayta's setup. But to wrap all this up, my initial impressions of Crayta is that there is a ton of potential here. Whether or not that potential will be fully reached is going to heavily depend on the community that surrounds the game. And that will be heavily dependent on how the Crayta dev team handles their community and their platform. And right now, the future looks bright because they've been handling it really well so far. Their inclusion of the community throughout the development process has been astounding, and their live streams teaching others how to create games is great. They're already introducing a prize fund plan to actually reward the top creations, and I think this is a great step. On top of that, they also announced a Black Creators Prize Fund and mentoring program, and if you want more information on that, I'll link it in the description below, but it really does speak volumes. The passion behind this title is extremely clear, and I do wish them the best of luck. As for myself, I'll be going back to my tumbleweed-rich farm and harvesting some crops, but I can't wait to see how this game grows. Now, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out, and if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. Today's end of video message is just gonna be me asking you for your opinion on Crayta. Have you played it yet? Are you interested? And what would you like to see changed? Do let me know in the comments section below. I look forward to reading your replies. As always, thank you for watching. This has been Generation Stadia, giving you that daily dose of everything and anything Stadia related. The Gen S community is over 4,600 strong and growing by the day, and until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.